now we're onto the edge, which is very, as you can even look at the kite, massive difference from the C4. Has a racing heritage, and is another well-designed kite in the Ozone range. So let Steve talk about the edge and where it's come from and where it is going today in regards to its design.
Sure. The edge is, Ozone's original race kite. The racing scene has moved on to foil kites though, and hydrofoil boards. But back in the day when it was formula boards with 3 fins, and it was that style of racing, this was the kite that basically dominated the scene. And prior to that, it was still around as the Ozone Instinct Edge, and that's where its heritage comes from. This is in its 8th iteration, so it's called V8. And it goes way back to 2007 again, when Ozone introduced the Instinct range and had light, sport and edge. And the sport was the C4, the light was the Catalyst, and the edge is still the edge. It was a free ride kite initially, and then it became the race kite because it was so fast. It's the highest aspect ratio kite in the range, only slightly higher than the Zephyr, which we'll move on to soon. And those two kites share some DNA. You can see just in the design that the struts themselves are angled back significantly, and the leading edge is really swept to the tip, significantly different to anything else in the range, and it's primarily built for speed. It's bridled though, so that it still turns, because it's one thing to go fast, but you've got to change direction in racing. So, and you want speed, and power through the turn. So Rob has designed a bridle that goes to almost the center, and it has a very thin bridle material to reduce parasitic drag and just enhance that speed. The bridle itself is again compact, but it's one of the longer ones in the range. Because the kite is high aspect ratio, it's a very wide kite. So it's more for these days high wind hydrofoil racing. So most of the hydrofoils are starting to go, well, these foil kites are getting sort of expensive. And then for going downwind and performing in strong winds, they're finding that the inflatables are still very competitive. So a lot of guys are still choosing to go 7, 6, 7, 8 or 9 in the edges as their high wind kite, and use the foils for lighter winds, which they're much more efficient because they're lighter. These are still a 5-strut inflatable kite, so there's a bit of weight inherent in the design, and that detracts from overall top-end speed in light winds. But the one thing that everyone notices about this kite is its lift, its ability to go upwind and point higher than any of our other kites in the range, and that translates to big boosting. And there's some videos around on the internet. One in particular that always comes to mind is a Dutch rider that rides for Shop and Ozone over in Holland, and his name's Eddie Lansik, and he went out in, I think it must have been about 40 knots in the North Sea or whatever it was, off the Dutch coast, and basically boosted like as big as I've ever seen. I've seen people come close, and he would be up there with in the Woo championships, up around the 17, 18 meter height range, which is significantly higher than anything around here in these trees. It's a long way up, and this kite very controllable and loopable, particularly down looping, very, very controllable. I love the kite for boosting.
I think if anyone's ever had a Woo on their board and they've actually gone out and jumped, and they soon learn to appreciate how high anything over 10 to 15 to, I can't even imagine what 18, 20 meters, 23 meters would feel like or look like in the air. So it's pretty impressive. And I mean, the edge, it just looks like from my point of view, just looks like a really fast kite, and looks like the way it performs, I guess. And you can tell that it's designed for performance and speed, and just the whole shape and look of the kite. I think as you get more experience in the industry, you learn to sort of appreciate kite design and how they look and how they perform. So massive difference from the C4 and some of the other kites that we have spoken about previously, but has its rightful place in the Ozone lineup. So we're next going to go on to the Zephyr, which is I guess the cousin of the Edge, and it's going to be the older cousin, or the bigger cousin, I guess. So we'll get into that now.